The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, broadcast across every human communication channel in the galaxy. Admiral Kang Tae-min stood on the bridge of the orbital station New Seoul, watching the alien hologram flicker to life before him. The creature speaking was tall and thin, with crystal-like skin that caught the light from nearby stars. "Humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "We are the Galactic Council of Races. For 300 years we have watched your species spread across the stars like a disease. We have been patient. We have been kind. But no more." Kang Tae-min felt his stomach drop. Around him, his crew stopped what they were doing to listen. Even the soft hum of the ship's engines seemed quieter. "You have 72 standard hours to surrender," the alien continued. "Remove all humans from the outer colonies. Bring your ships to Earth. Accept our protection. If you refuse, we will remove you ourselves." The hologram flickered and died. For a moment, nobody spoke. "Sir?" asked Lieutenant Park Mi-young, her voice barely a whisper. Kang Tae-min looked out at the stars through the main window. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were moving toward human space. The reports had been coming in for weeks. Massive ships, appearing at the edges of their territory, just watching and waiting. "Get me Earth Command," he said finally, "and send word to all colony worlds. They need to know." 2 decks below, Dr. Yoon Hana was already working. She had been studying alien communications for 15 years, ever since humanity's first real contact with the galactic community. Most people thought the aliens were just arrogant. Hana knew better. She pulled up the secret files on her computer screen. For months she had been collecting pieces of alien transmissions that weren't meant for human ears. The translation software was crude, but it worked well enough. What she read made her blood run cold. The aliens weren't planning to protect humanity. They were planning to kill them all. The word cleansing appeared again and again in their private messages. Remove the infestation. Clean the galaxy. Hana grabbed her emergency communicator and ran for the nearest transport. She had to get to Earth Command, and she had to get there fast. Meanwhile, on the edge of human space, Commander Park Jin-woo was seeing the truth with his own eyes. His small scout ship drifted silently behind an asteroid, watching the alien fleet gather. He counted the ships on his scanner and counted again, hoping he was wrong. 50,000 ships. Maybe more. The human fleet had 200 ships total, spread across dozens of star systems. Even if they could gather them all in one place, they would be outnumbered 250 to 1. "This is Ranger 7 to Earth Command," he whispered into his radio, trying not to let his fear show in his voice. "I have eyes on the alien fleet. They're not here to talk." Back on Earth, President Lee So-young sat in the emergency meeting, room deep beneath the Capitol building. Around the table sat the leaders of humanity's military and government. Their faces were grim. "How long do we have?" she asked. 68 hours now," replied General Kim Jae-ho. "Maybe less if they decide to move early." "What about evacuation? Can we get people off the outer colonies?" "Not in time. Even if we started right now, we couldn't move more than a few thousand people." President Lee closed her eyes. 2 billion. Humans lived on the colony worlds. There was no way to save them all. "There is another option," said a voice from the corner of the room. Everyone turned to look. A man stepped out of the shadows near the wall. He was old, maybe 70, with gray hair and tired eyes. Nobody had seen him enter the room. "Who are you?" demanded General Kim. "My name is Master Choi Byung-ho," the old man said. "I represent the Shadow Council." The room fell silent. Everyone had heard whispers about the Shadow Council over the years, rumors of a secret group that had been working behind the scenes. Since first contact, most people thought they were just stories. "The Shadow Council is real?" asked President Lee. "Very real," Choi replied. "We have been preparing for this day for 400 years. That's impossible. First contact was only 300 years ago." Choi smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "First official contact, yes. But we knew they were coming long before that." We've been watching them watch us." He walked to the center of the room and placed a small device on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing a map of human space. But this map was different from any they had seen before. It showed hidden bases, secret shipyards, and facilities that shouldn't exist. While they thought we were struggling to build a few hundred ships, Choi said, we were building something else entirely. Dr. Yoon Hana burst into the room at that moment, her face red from running. "President Lee, I have to tell you something. The aliens, they're not planning to protect us. They want to kill us all." She stopped when she saw the strange man and the holographic display. "What's going on here?" "Dr. Hana," President Lee said. "Meet Master Choi. He says his people have been preparing for this war for 4 centuries. Hana looked at the display and her eyes went wide. "Those facilities? How is this possible? We've mapped every human installation in the galaxy." "You've mapped every installation we wanted you to see," Choi replied. "The real fleet has been hidden. The real technology has been kept secret. We let the aliens think we were weak and stupid. We let our own people think we were weak and stupid." General Kim leaned forward. "How many ships are we talking about?" 15,000 combat vessels, each one more advanced than anything in the public fleet. The room erupted in surprised voices, but President Lee held up her hand for silence. "Why should we believe you? If you had this kind of power, why hide it?" "Because," Choi said, "the aliens had to think they were winning. They had to gather all their forces in one place. They had to commit everything to this attack. If they had known the truth, they would have struck earlier, when we weren't ready." He touched another control on his device. The display changed, to show the alien fleet that Commander Park was watching. But now there were other markers on the screen, human ships that weren't supposed to exist, moving through space in ways that should be impossible. "The Shadow Gate is ready," Choi said. "Our people are in position. The real war is about to begin." President Lee looked around the table at her advisors. They all looked as shocked as she felt. "What do you need from us?" she asked finally. "Keep playing your part," Choi replied. "Let the aliens think you're desperate. Let them think you're about to surrender. Meanwhile, we'll show them what humanity is really capable of." The old man walked back toward the shadows. "The next 72 hours will decide the fate of our species, but for the first time in 300 years, I think we're going to win." He disappeared back into the darkness, leaving the leaders of humanity staring at each other in amazement and hope. Captain Kim Soo-jin thought she was having the strangest dream of her life. One moment she was sleeping in her quarters aboard the transport ship Morning Star, and the next moment armed soldiers were shaking her awake. "Captain Kim," one of them said, "you need to come with us right now." "What's going on?" she asked, pulling on her uniform jacket. "Are we under attack?" "No questions until we reach the facility," the soldier replied. They led her through corridors she had never seen before, down into parts of the ship that weren't on any official deck plans. The walls here looked different, newer somehow, made of materials that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Finally, they stopped at a door that opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a small room with chairs and a large screen. An old man was waiting for her. "Captain Kim Soo-jin," he said with a slight bow. "I am Master Choi Byung-ho. Please sit down. We have much to discuss." Kim sat down slowly, her mind racing. "I've heard that name before. You're supposed to be some kind of legend." "I am very real, I assure you," Choi replied. He touched a control panel and the screen came to life. "Tell me, Captain, what do you know about the early days of human space exploration?" The screen showed old footage from 400 years ago. Primitive rockets launching from Earth, the first colonies being built, the excitement of reaching the stars. "Everyone knows the story," Kim said. "We went out into space, met the aliens, and discovered we were the youngest race in the galaxy." "That's the story we told everyone," Choi agreed. But it wasn't the whole truth. The image on the screen changed. Now it showed something impossible. Human ships that looked far more advanced than anything from 400 years ago, moving through space in formation. "We knew the aliens were watching us long before official first contact," Choi continued. "Our deep space sensors picked up their scout ships when we were still using chemical rockets. We knew they were studying us, deciding what to do with us. Kim stared at the screen. The ships she was seeing had designs she recognized. They looked like the most modern vessels in the current human fleet, but the footage was clearly ancient. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "A small group of our best scientists and engineers went underground," Choi explained. "We called ourselves the Shadow Council. While the public space program followed normal development, we began working on advanced technologies in secret." The screen showed hidden facilities built inside asteroids, massive construction yards floating in the darkness between stars, research stations that looked like they belonged in science fiction movies. "We had help," Choi continued. "The aliens weren't the only ones watching Earth. There were others, friendlier species who stayed hidden from the Galactic Council. They gave us hints about physics and technology, just enough to get us started on the right path." Kim watched as the footage showed humans working alongside strange beings she had never seen before. Some looked like living energy. Others were mechanical creatures that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "The Council species are powerful, but they're not the only intelligent life in the galaxy," Choi said. "They just think they are. The hidden races have been waiting for someone to challenge Council dominance for thousands of years." "Why me?" Kim asked. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you've been chosen to join the Shadow Fleet," Choi replied. "Your skills as a pilot and your ability to think quickly under pressure make you valuable to us." The screen changed again, showing a vast hangar bay filled with ships unlike anything Kim had ever seen. They were sleek and dark, with curves that seemed to bend light around them. Some were as small as fighters. Others were massive dreadnoughts that could carry thousands of people. 15,000 ships, Choi said proudly. Each one built with technology the Council has never seen. Faster than light drives that leave no trace. Weapons that can cut through any known armor. And most importantly, the ability to travel through the shadow gates. "What are shadow gates?" Kim asked. Instead of answering with words, Choi showed her. The screen displayed a massive ring-shaped structure floating in empty space. It was easily 100 kilometers across, covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Normal hyperspace travel follows the paths that the Council knows about," Choi explained. "But there are other dimensions, other ways to move through space and time. The shadow gates let us travel instantly between any points in the galaxy, through spaces the Council can't detect or follow." Kim watched as one of the dark ships approached the gate. The ring began to glow with impossible colors, and suddenly the ship was gone. "Where did it go?" she asked. "Anywhere we want it to go," Choi replied. "We have smaller gates hidden throughout Council space, built over the course of centuries by our agents. When this war begins, we'll be able to strike anywhere, anytime, without warning." The door behind them opened and another person entered. It was a woman about Kim's age, wearing a uniform that was similar to standard human military dress but with subtle differences. "Captain Kim, this is Engineer Bae Min-ho," Choi said. "She'll be showing you around your new ship." Bae bowed politely. "It's an honor to meet you, Captain. I helped to design the ship you'll be commanding. I think you'll find it interesting." They led Kim through more hidden corridors, finally emerging into the hangar bay she had seen on the screen. Up close, the ships were even more impressive. They seemed to absorb sound as well as light. The huge space was eerily quiet despite having hundreds of people working on the vessels. "Your ship is the Nightwalker," Bae said, pointing to a sleek craft about the size of a small destroyer. "She can carry a crew of 50 and has enough firepower to destroy a Council battleship." They walked up the boarding ramp, and Kim gasped. The interior of the ship looked like it was grown rather than built. The walls had an organic curve to them, and soft light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The ship's computer uses a form of artificial intelligence that we learned from our hidden allies," Bae explained. "It can think and adapt during combat in ways that Council ships cannot. It will learn your preferences and fighting style, becoming more effective the longer you command it." They reached the bridge, and Kim sat in the captain's chair. Immediately, displays came to life around her, showing information in ways she had never seen before. The ship seemed to be welcoming her. "There's so much to learn," she said, feeling overwhelmed. "You'll have time," Choi assured her from the doorway. "The Shadow Fleet has been training crews for generations. Many of your officers are the children and grandchildren of the original Shadow Council members. They've been preparing their whole lives for this moment. Kim looked out through the bridge windows at the other ships in the hangar. Each one represented technology and knowledge that the rest of humanity didn't even know existed. How many people know the truth? She asked. About 50,000, spread across dozens of hidden facilities, Choi replied. Enough to crew our ships and maintain our installations, but not so many that the secret could leak out. And now the war is really starting? Choi nodded grimly. The Council fleet is moving toward human space. Our public forces will make their brave stand just as the aliens expect. But when the time is right, the Shadow Fleet will emerge from the darkness. He walked to the bridge's main display and activated it. The screen showed a real-time view of human space with markers indicating both the public fleet and the hidden shadow forces. For 4 centuries, we've let them think we were weak, Choi said. We've let them think we were barely capable of building simple spacecraft. Tomorrow they'll discover how wrong they were. Kim stood up from the captain's chair and looked around the bridge one more time. Everything was about to change. Humanity was about to reveal its greatest secret. When do we begin? She asked. Choi smiled, and for the first time it looked like a happy expression. We already have. Chief Engineer Lim Yuri had been waiting for this moment her entire life. She stood in the control center of the Shadow Gate, watching hundreds of displays show the status of the massive structure. After 400 years of construction and preparation, everything was finally ready. All systems show green, reported Navigator Oh Sang-woo from his position at the Dimensional Mapping Station. The gate is stable and ready for full activation. Yuri looked out through the transparent wall of the control center at the Shadow Gate itself. The massive ring stretched into the distance so large that she could barely see the far side. Strange patterns covered its surface, patterns that seemed to move and shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. How many ships are ready for the first wave? She asked. 3,000 vessels standing by, replied Admiral Shin Kyung-mi through the communication system. The Admiral was aboard her flagship, the Dark Thunder, positioned near the gate with the rest of the first attack fleet. Yuri had worked on the Shadow Gate project for 20 years, ever since graduating from the hidden engineering schools that the Shadow Council operated. She knew every system, every component, every line of code that made the impossible structure work. The gate didn't just move ships through normal space. It opened doorways into dimensions that existed between the regular universe, spaces where distance and time worked differently. A ship could enter the gate near Earth and emerge instantly near the galactic core, thousands of light years away. Beginning final activation sequence, Yuri announced. She placed her hands on the control interface and the patterns on her screen began to change. Deep inside the gate, power systems that used principles beyond normal physics came online. The ring began to glow with colors that had no names. On Earth, Admiral Kang Tae-min was leading the public human fleet in what everyone believed would be humanity's last battle. His 200 ships were spread across 3 star systems, trying to protect the major colony worlds from the advancing alien armada. They're not even trying to be subtle about it, reported Commander Park Jin-woo from his position on the bridge. 50,000 ships coming straight at us in a wall formation. Kang Tae-min nodded grimly. The alien fleet was so large that it would take hours just to count all the ships. Each of the major council species had contributed their most powerful vessels. Crystal ships from the Varix Empire that could shatter planets, energy beings from the Nethri Collective that existed in pure plasma form, and massive mechanical constructs from the Chronarch that were more like mobile space stations than normal spacecraft. Send a message to all colony worlds, he ordered. Begin emergency evacuation procedures. Get as many people as possible onto transport ships and send them toward Earth. He was playing his part perfectly, just as Master Choi had instructed. The aliens had to believe that humanity was desperate and defeated. Meanwhile, the real battle was about to begin in ways the Council could never imagine. In the Shadow Gate Control Center, Navigator Oh Sang-woo was tracking dimensional currents that flowed through the hidden spaces between worlds. His instruments showed pathways that led to dozens of star systems throughout Council territory. I have locks on all primary targets, he reported. The small gates are responding perfectly. Yuri smiled. The large shadow gate was only part of the system. Over the centuries, human agents had secretly installed smaller gates throughout the galaxy. They were hidden inside asteroids, disguised as space debris, or built into the structures of abandoned space stations. The Council had unknowingly allowed humans to place doorways into their most secure systems. Admiral Shin, you are clear for dimensional transit, Yuri announced. On her flagship, Admiral Shin Kyung-mi gave the order that would change galactic history forever. All ships, enter the Shadow Gate. Operation Dark Dawn begins now. The first wave of Shadow Fleet vessels approached the gate in perfect formation. As each ship reached the glowing ring, it simply vanished, passing into the spaces between dimensions where the laws of physics worked differently. Yuri watched her instruments as 3,000 of humanity's most advanced warships disappeared from normal space. But she could still track them through the dimensional sensors, following their progress through the hidden pathways toward their targets. Time to emergence 30 seconds, reported Oh Sang-woo. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon Ha-na was working frantically in her laboratory aboard the orbital station New Seoul. She had been studying the alien communication networks for years, and now she was putting that knowledge to use. I'm into their primary data channel, she announced to her team. They're using quantum encryption, but I've been working on breaking their codes for months. The truth was, breaking alien codes would normally be impossible for humans. But Dr. Hana had access to technology that the public fleet didn't know existed. Hidden processors that used dimensional computing principles allowed her to solve mathematical problems that would take normal computers thousands of years. Their fleet coordination system is wide open, she continued. I can see everything. Ship positions, command structures, communication protocols. They're not even trying to hide their movements because they think we're too primitive to understand their technology. She began uploading viral programs into the alien network, programs that had been designed by Shadow Council computer specialists decades ago. The viruses would lie dormant until activated, then cause chaos throughout the Council fleet's electronic systems. Back at the Shadow Gate, Navigator Oh Sang-woo announced, emergence in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. Throughout Council space, impossible things began to happen. In the Varix home system, a squadron of dark human ships materialized inside the outer asteroid belt and began attacking the Crystal Beings' mining facilities. Near the Nethri Collective's energy research stations, Shadow Fleet vessels emerged from dimensional portals and struck with weapons the energy creatures had never seen before. The Council species had spent thousands of years perfecting their military technology, but they had always fought in normal space using conventional physics. The Shadow Fleet ships moved through dimensions the aliens couldn't detect, struck with weapons that manipulated fundamental forces, and disappeared before the enemy could respond. Admiral Shin Kyung-mi coordinated the attacks from her position in the dimensional void between galaxies. Her ships could emerge anywhere in the galaxy within seconds, strike their targets, and retreat into the hidden dimensions before enemy reinforcements could arrive. Target Alpha 7 has been neutralized, reported Captain Kim Soo-jin from her ship, the Nightwalker. She had just destroyed a major Council communication relay that coordinated fleet movements across dozens of star systems. Target Beta 3 is down, announced another captain. Their supply depot won't be sending any more weapons to their main fleet. One by one, the reports came in. The Shadow Fleet was systematically dismantling the infrastructure that held the WoW Council's military power together. Communication networks failed, supply lines were cut, and automated defense systems turned against their creators as Hana's computer viruses spread through alien systems. But the most shocking discovery came when Dr. Yoon Ha-na detected something in the dimensional readings from the Shadow Gate. Chief Engineer Lim, she said through the communication system, I'm seeing impossible readings from the gate's dimensional sensors. Are you seeing this? Yuri checked her displays and felt her breath catch. That can't be right. According to this, the gate isn't just moving ships through space. It's moving them through time as well. How far? Hana asked. Yuri ran the calculations twice to make sure. The temporal displacement is minimal, but it's there. Ships entering the gate arrive at their destinations approximately 3 minutes before they left. The implications hit both women at the same time. The Shadow Fleet wasn't just fighting the Council in the present. They were fighting with the advantage of knowing what was going to happen before it happened. No wonder we're winning, Yuri whispered. In normal space, the alien fleets were beginning to panic. Their carefully coordinated advance on human space was falling apart as their support systems failed one by one. Ships that should have been resupplying found their depots destroyed. Commanders trying to coordinate attacks discovered their communication. Networks were compromised. Admiral Kang Tae-min watched from his bridge as the enemy formation began to show signs of confusion. The massive alien fleet was still advancing, but gaps were appearing in their perfect wall of ships. Something's happening to them, observed Commander Park Jin-woo. Their formation is getting sloppy. Kang Tae-min allowed himself a small smile. The Shadow Fleet was doing its job perfectly. Soon it would be time for the public fleet to show what humanity could really do when they stopped pretending to be weak. All ships, he announced to his fleet, prepare for full combat operations. The real war begins now. Fleet Commander Vex Tai of the Nethri Collective had lived for 3,000 years and had never experienced fear like this. His plasma-based form flickered with nervous energy as he studied the reports flooding into his flagship's command center. Impossible, he whispered in his species' energy-based language. 17 supply depots destroyed in the last hour. Communication relays going dark across 50 star systems. Ships vanishing without sending any distress signals. His second-in-command, a younger Nethri named Zilra, pulsed with confusion. The human fleet is still exactly where we expected them to be. Our sensors show only their primitive vessels, in defensive positions around their colony worlds. Vextai studied the tactical display showing the battlefield. The human ships looked pathetic compared to the massive Council Armada. 200 crewed vessels facing 50,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. Yet somehow the Council forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see or detect. Send a priority message to the Varix and Chronarch fleets, he ordered. Something is very wrong here. On the human ship Nightwalker, Captain Kim Soo-jin was leading her squadron through what she had learned to call shadow space, the dimension between normal reality where the Shadow Fleet operated. Through her ship's sensors, she could see the Council fleet spread across several star systems, but they couldn't see her. Target acquired, reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Nam Ji-hoon. Council battleship, Chronarch design. It's one of their flagship-class vessels. Kim studied the massive mechanical ship on her screen. It was 10 times the size of her vessel and armed with enough weapons to destroy a planet. 6 months ago, she would have considered it invincible. Fire shadow torpedoes, she ordered. The Nightwalker's weapons didn't work like normal human armaments. Instead of explosive warheads, they fired concentrated bursts of dimensional energy that could phase through normal matter and then solidify inside the target. To the Chronarch ship, it would look like its own hull was suddenly exploding from the inside. The massive enemy vessel shuddered as the shadow torpedoes struck. Its mechanical systems began failing as the dimensional energy disrupted the quantum fields that held its structure together. Within minutes, the mighty battleship was breaking apart. Target destroyed, reported Nam Ji-hoon with satisfaction. They never even knew we were here. Throughout the battle zone, similar attacks were happening. Shadow Fleet vessels emerged from dimensional portals, struck with impossible weapons and vanished before the enemy could respond. The Council fleets were being torn apart by ghosts, but the most devastating attacks weren't against ships, they were against the aliens' own technology. Specialist Nam Ji-hoon had spent years learning how Council computer systems worked, and now he was using that knowledge to turn their greatest strengths into weaknesses. I'm uploading the next virus package, he announced from his position at the cyber warfare station. This one targets their automated defense networks. The virus spread through the Council's communication grid like wildfire. Within hours, defense platforms throughout their territory began attacking their own ships. Automated systems that had protected alien worlds for centuries suddenly identified Council vessels as hostile targets. Master strategist Ko Hyun-wook, watched the battle unfold from his command center deep inside a hidden asteroid base. Holographic displays showed him the status of operations across dozens of star systems. Everything was proceeding exactly as he had planned. For 40 years, Ko had been developing what he called the Patience Protocol, a strategy based on humanity's greatest strength, their ability to think far ahead and wait for the perfect moment to act. Phase 3 is complete, he announced to his staff. Begin Phase 4 operations. Phase 4 was the revelation of humanity's deepest secret. For centuries, humans had been seeding council space with more than just spy networks and hidden gates. They had been placing their own people throughout alien society. Captain Park Yoon-seo commanded a special Shadow Fleet unit that worked with these deep cover agents. Her ships emerged from dimensional portals near major council worlds, not to attack, but to extract human operatives who had been living among the aliens for generations. This is Extraction Team Alpha, she reported through the dimensional communication system. We have Agent Lee Wan-soo safely aboard. He's been working as a maintenance engineer on the Varix homeworld for 25 years. Lee Wan-soo had access to the Crystal Being's most secure installations. More importantly, he had been secretly installing human technology into their systems for decades. When the Shadow Fleet activated the hidden devices, entire Varix cities lost power as their energy grids were overloaded. Similar operations were happening throughout Council space. Human agents emerged from deep cover, activated sabotage devices they had been placing for years and were extracted by Shadow Fleet vessels before the aliens even knew what was happening. The Council species had always believed they were superior to humans in every way. They had longer lifespans, more advanced technology, and greater understanding of the universe. What they didn't have was patience. The Chronarch fleet is requesting immediate reinforcements, reported Communications Officer Yu Jae-sung from Admiral Shin Kyung-mi's flagship. They're claiming they're under attack by forces that don't exist. Admiral Shin allowed herself a cold smile. Send a response through the captured Council communication channels. Tell them help is on the way. But the help that arrived was more Shadow Fleet vessels, disguised using alien identification codes. The Council fleets were so panicked and confused that they welcomed the reinforcements without question. Only when the disguised human ships opened fire did they realize they had been tricked. The psychological impact was devastating. The alien commanders couldn't trust their own sensors, their own communication networks, or even their own reinforcements. The mighty Council fleets began to fall apart from within as suspicion and fear spread through their ranks. Dr. Yoon Hana made the most shocking discovery while analyzing data from the dimensional sensors. She had been studying the time displacement effects of the shadow gates when she noticed something impossible in the readings. Master Choi, she called through the emergency communication channel. I need to speak with you immediately. The old man appeared on her screen within seconds, his face grave with concern. What have you found, Dr. Hana? The shadow gates don't just allow limited time travel, she said, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. They're connecting to parallel dimensions, alternate realities where history happened differently. She showed him the readings on her screen. Some of our ships aren't just arriving 3 minutes early. They're arriving from timelines where the battle already happened, where we've already won. They know exactly what the enemy is going to do because they've already fought this battle in another reality. Master Choi was quiet for a long moment. Are you certain? The mathematical proof is clear. We're not just fighting the Council in our reality. We're fighting them across multiple dimensions, with information from timelines where humanity has already achieved victory. The implications were staggering. The Shadow Fleet wasn't just more advanced than the Council forces. They were operating with knowledge from alternate realities where the war had already been won. Every strategy, every battle plan, every move the aliens made had already been countered in another dimension. Meanwhile, the Council leaders were finally beginning to understand the scope of the disaster facing them. Fleet Commander Vextai received a priority message from the Varix High Crystal, the supreme leader of the Crystal Beings. Commander. The alien's translated voice was filled with something that might have been panic. Our home system defenses have been compromised. Unknown attackers have destroyed our primary shipyards and are advancing on our core worlds. Similar messages were arriving from all the major council species. The humans weren't just defending their own territory, they were simultaneously attacking the heart of council civilization across dozens of star systems. How is this possible? Vextide demanded of his tactical analysts. How can primitive humans be in so many places at once? Nobody had an answer. The human public fleet was still, exactly where it had been, still looking pathetic and defeated, but somehow, other human forces were everywhere at once, striking with weapons and tactics that seemed to violate the known laws of physics. In the hidden command center, Master Strategist Ko Hyun-wook was preparing to activate the final phase of the Patience Protocol. After 4 centuries of careful planning, humanity was ready to reveal its ultimate secret. All Shadow Fleet units, he announced through the Dimensional Communication Network, prepare for convergence operations. It's time to show the Council what humanity is really capable of. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to reach its climax. The Council Citadel had stood at the center of the galaxy for 10,000 years. It was a massive artificial structure, larger than most planets, where the ruling bodies of all the major alien species made decisions that affected trillions of lives. No enemy had ever successfully attacked it. Today, that was about to change. Admiral Kang Tae-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as both the public human fleet and the Shadow Fleet emerged from dimensional portals around the Citadel. For the first time in 4 centuries, humanity was showing its true strength. All ships report ready, announced Commander Park Jin-woo. 15,000 Shadow Fleet vessels and 200 public fleet ships in perfect formation. The sight was breathtaking. The Shadow Fleet ships appeared like dark angels against the stars, their dimensional drives leaving trails of impossible colors in space. The public fleet, no longer pretending to be weak, had activated hidden weapon systems and defensive technologies that made them equal to any Council warship. Begin the final assault, Kang Tae-min ordered. The battle for the Council Citadel was unlike anything in galactic history. Shadow Fleet vessels phased in and out of normal space, striking from dimensions the alien defenders couldn't detect. Public fleet ships revealed weapons that fired concentrated gravity waves, electromagnetic pulses that disabled entire enemy squadrons, and defensive shields that could absorb energy attacks and redirect them back at their sources. Commander Park Jin-woo led the boarding parties that penetrated the Citadel's outer defenses. His assault troops wore armor that used the same dimensional technology as the Shadow Fleet ships, allowing them to phase through solid matter and appear inside heavily defended areas. "We're through the outer hull," he reported as his teams materialized in the Citadel's main corridors, moving toward the primary command centers. The alien defenders were completely unprepared for enemies who could walk through walls and appear behind their defensive positions. Council security forces had trained for thousands of years to fight conventional battles, but they had no tactics for dealing with humans who seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Engineer Bae Min-ho was working frantically to prevent the aliens from activating their final desperate weapon. Deep in the Citadel's core was a device capable of sterilizing entire star systems by causing their suns to go supernova. "I've found their doomsday system," she reported through her communication link. "It's more advanced than we expected. They can target multiple star systems simultaneously." She was racing through the Citadel's corridors, her dimensional armor allowing her to phase through blast doors that would normally take hours to cut through. Behind her, alien security forces fired weapons that passed harmlessly through her partially phased form. "How long do you need to disable it?" asked Admiral Shin Kyung-mi from her flagship outside the Citadel. "Give me 10 minutes, Bae replied, diving through a solid wall to avoid a squad of mechanical Chronarch warriors. Meanwhile, President Lee So-young was preparing for the most important speech in human history. She stood in the main communication center aboard the orbital station New Seoul, ready to address not just humanity but the entire galaxy. "All channels open," reported Communications Officer Yu Jae-sung. "Every inhabited world in the galaxy will receive this transmission." President Lee took a deep breath. Everything that happened next would depend on how the galaxy reacted to humanity's revelations. People of the galaxy, she began. I am President Lee So-young of Earth. For 3 centuries, your leaders have told you that humanity is a primitive, violent species that needs to be controlled or eliminated. Today you will learn the truth. Inside the Citadel, the final battle was reaching its climax. The council leaders had gathered in their most secure chamber, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. Master strategist Ko Hyun-wook materialized in the center of their chamber, his dimensional armor allowing him to appear inside their supposedly impenetrable defenses. Around him, other human operatives phased into existence surrounding the alien leaders. Greetings, Ko said politely in perfect translation to all the council languages. I am Master Strategist Ko Hyun-wook of the Shadow Council. We need to talk. The alien leaders stared at him in shock. Fleet Commander Vex Tai's plasma form flickered with confusion and fear. High Crystal Morthak of the Varix Empire pulsed with angry light. Prime Constructor Zeklon of the Chronarch made mechanical sounds that translated as profanity. This is impossible, Vex Tai said. How did you get past our defenses? The same way we've been getting past your defenses for 400 years, Ko replied calmly. We're better at this than you are. President Lee's speech was being broadcast throughout the galaxy as she explained humanity's true history. We knew you were watching us from the beginning. We knew you considered us inferior, so we let you believe what you wanted to believe while we built something better. She gestured, and the transmission showed footage of the Shadow Fleet in action. Ships that moved through impossible dimensions, weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality, and technology that made the Council's greatest achievements look primitive by comparison. We learned patience from studying your mistakes, she continued. Every galactic war in history has been fought by species that were too proud to hide their true strength. We chose a different path. Engineer Bae Min-ho reached the Doomsday device, just as the alien technicians were trying to activate it. The massive machine was a work of art as much as a weapon, covered in crystalline structures and energy conduits that pulsed with deadly power. Too late, human, snarled the lead technician, a Varix engineer whose crystal body glowed with triumph. In 30 seconds, your home star will become a supernova. Bae smiled and placed her hand on the machine's control interface. I don't think so. The device began to shut down, its energy patterns reversing as hidden programs activated throughout its systems. The alien technicians stared in horror as their ultimate weapon turned itself off. How? The Varix engineer whispered. We've been working on this machine for 20 years, Bae explained. Every component you installed, every circuit you built, we had people working on it. Did you really think we would let you build a weapon capable of destroying Earth without having a way to stop it? In the council chamber, Master Strategist Ko was delivering humanity's terms to the defeated alien leaders. You have a choice, he said simply. You can accept a new galactic order based on cooperation instead of domination, or you can watch your civilizations crumble as we systematically dismantle everything you've built. You're bluffing. High Crystal Morthak pulsed angrily. You cannot defeat all the council species. Ko activated a holographic display that showed the current status of the war. Across dozens of star systems, council fleets were surrendering or retreating. Their homeworlds were defenseless. Their communication networks were compromised, and their most advanced technology was being turned against them. We've already won, Ko said quietly. The only question is whether you want to be part of what comes next or whether you want to be swept aside by history. President Lee's broadcast was reaching its conclusion. The Galactic Council told you that different species could never work together as equals. They were wrong. We've been working with hidden allies for centuries, species that chose cooperation over conquest, knowledge over power. The transmission showed footage of the beings that had helped humanity develop Shadow Fleet technology, energy creatures that lived in the spaces between dimensions, mechanical intelligences that had transcended physical form, and other races that had remained hidden from Council detection for millennia. Today begins a new age, President Lee announced. The age of the new Galactic Compact, where all species can contribute their unique strengths instead of being dominated by the strongest. Admiral Shin Kyung-mi received the final surrender from the Council fleets. One by one, alien commanders, who had expected easy victory, found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and completely outmatched by human forces they hadn't even known existed. "This is Admiral Shin Kyung-mi of the Shadow Fleet," she announced to the defeated aliens. "Surrender your weapons and prepare to be escorted to neutral territory. Any ship that attempts to flee will be disabled and boarded." The war was over. The Council's military power was broken, their fleets surrendered and their leaders captured. But what shocked the galaxy most was what happened next. In the Council chamber, Ko helped the alien leaders to their feet and deactivated the restraint, Fields holding them. "You're not prisoners," he said to their amazement. "You're the first members of the new Galactic Compact." Fleet Commander Vextai's plasma form flickered with confusion. "You're not going to execute us? Enslave our people? Why would we do that?" Ko asked with genuine puzzlement. "We didn't fight this war to conquer you. We fought it to prove that we deserved a place at the galactic table as equals." Dr. Yoon Ha-na made the final discovery that changed everything. Her analysis of the Shadowgate technology revealed the ultimate truth about humanity's journey to the stars. "President Lee," she announced through the communication network, "the Shadowgates don't just connect different points in space and time. They connect different realities.